What's that? Glad to be back. I want to introduce you, yeah, that looks like you. I want to introduce you to Michael Creed from Luminate Home Loans. You good?
I'm listening. I'm doing you guys don't want to get text messages and phone calls while I'm in here.
I guess that's true.
Putting my phone in do not disturb.
Thank you. Very kind.
And my watch.
You're a very in-demand person.
Some days. Usually on Fridays, it's not too bad.
But well, I'm glad we were able to schedule it on Friday then. So thanks for being here. Do you mind just telling folks a little bit about you and your background and kind of what you do and how you got to doing what you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in the mortgage. My name is Michael Creed, as Michael said. I've been in the mortgage business for over 20 years. I've been originating in sales in that space the entire time. I have run a branch for at least 15 of those years, but owned the branch since 2018. And then I'm also a partner in our entire operation. So Luminate Home Loans is a wholly owned subsidiary of Luminate Bank. And there's 18 of us, though we did a recent capital campaign because we're growing to grow that. But we bought a bank in 2020 and put our mortgage company under it. And the main goal for that was two reasons. One, as AI and technology comes around, it's going to eliminate the loan originator to the most part. And there's already some companies that are doing that quite well. So it allows us to have other revenue streams, right? So deposits and other ways to help our clients. But one of the biggest ones, particularly in a cost savings perspective, is that we moved from state licensing in most cases to federal licensing. So, for example, right now, anybody that joins our company doesn't have to have a license at all and can originate currently in about 30 states just right out of the gate, which I was licensed personally in 7 states for a long time, and that was almost $3,000 a year just for those licenses. So 30 states could easily be $10,000 in investments,
It's just for one agent.
Just for one originator.
Originator.
Exactly.
Wow.
So there's this idea of better regulation was a big part of it too. So, and then once our home loan company, this will happen next year, becomes a division of the bank as opposed to a subsidiary. Because a subsidiary means we have to run it as a completely separate business, no shared services, anything like that. Once we become a division, then all 50 states will open up immediately. Because there are some states, Wisconsin isn't one of them. That's why it's only about 30. There's 30 states-ish that they just automatically exempt us because we're FDIC.
Wow.
But the other 20 require something. So, for example, client in New Jersey, a client in Wisconsin was buying a place in New Hampshire, not the other new, not too long ago, and they wanted to buy, but we weren't licensed there. My branch wasn't. So my branch just paid a fee. I think it was like $400 or $500 just one time, and then the branch was able to do business, and then I, by default, was able to. So that's a little bit of a nuance. But yeah, the licensing is a big reason for it.
That's interesting. And since you and I have known each other, I think this is the second company you've been with. Before Luminate, you were under, I can't remember.
We were with Leader One.
Leader One, right.
I'm the same. My region at Leader One is actually Luminate. So we had all of us, about 250 of us left. Some of us put up money. The rest of us put up our careers essentially and moved to this company. So the bank that we bought, it was a mortgage company and a bank as well, and they were both on the verge of bankruptcy was what had happened, right? So we had all the regulatory stuff already taken care of, which is the hardest part of getting this stuff going. We bought those rights and then righted the company. I mean, the ship was absolutely sinking.
Okay.
So when we first got in, the loan system didn't do anything. We're like, okay, nothing works from one page to the next. It's all broken. So we're all like, we know how to do this, but the computer's not doing it. Like that was,
got it.
We could see very clearly why they were struggling.
And you had figured out a lot of successful systems and processes and things that were working, which enabled you to basically go and buy somebody else and set it up right.
Yeah, my partners had most of that. For my branch, and what we'll be talking about today is more my branch operations. It's something that I use in my consulting company as well, which I won't even talk about today. But it is the operational piece. I think both at the headquarters level with the partners and then also at the branch are really ultimately what makes it what it is today.
Because I remember when you and I first met. Brookfield Chamber, 2018. It's funny, I remember our one-on-one was like right over there.
Yeah, in this building.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I remember you were talking about the processes that you have, and I think for the most part, those processes are the same processes at their core, at least, that you're running today. And I remember we always talk about growing and scaling. I remember going like just kind of, it was completely over my head, thinking at that level of system, and as you have things systematically figured out. And the process and the scripting and everybody says the same thing and does it all the same way. And I was sharing with them earlier how when I joined Spearity, Darren has all our calendar events kind of tagged a certain way.
Yep.
And he was one person at the time, and I didn't get why he was bothering tagging his own calendar for himself.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And now I get it.
Okay.
And so, and from you thinking about systems and how things are set up to be at the level that you're at right now, I just appreciate that systems level of thinking and how that really informs your sales process.
Yeah, I'll talk about an operation piece and we'll jump into the sales, but just yesterday this meeting happened where I had to call my main branch processor and my contract close to a meeting because they weren't following our systems and a lot of things were falling through the cracks. Oh. And so what had happened was, because the business has been so slow for the last year, a little more than that, as rates have been higher, people aren't buying quite as much. They were able to be sloppy and we could still look like we were doing well. And so it's simple things like not using enough words in the pipeline meetings every day, because that meeting is virtual. It's a report that we put notes on. It's nothing more than that. But when you have a Excel box this big and you barely fill it, that's not enough communication to the rest of the people involved in the file, right?
Right.
And then not flagging things for follow-up, because we're seeing just over and over and over again that we're chasing certain people, particularly insurance agents, for the paperwork that we need. And it's our job to follow that up properly, right? So I knew there might be an insurance person in the room. But
pretty good chance.
It's how it always is. There's going to be a lender, a realtor, an insurance and a financial advisor in pretty much every room.
Yep.
That process of not following that, my point is, it's really easy when you're not busy to not have a system and it's already cool. But when you get busy, you'll find out that what you were doing or what was always working doesn't work at all. In fact, you've just been lucky the whole time.
I can completely identify with that.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the things that you have figured out from a sales process of what works? So our focus for today is closing the deal. But we've been talking earlier about how do we set ourselves up for an easier close, as opposed to trying to do all the work in the last moment.
Yeah. That's the worst way to do it. So there's a few things that you and I talked about in the pregame that I'll hit on. One is we reverse engineer a strategy to allow us to ask at the right times for business. So that implies we're asking, first of all. And in some cases, to use your words from our conversation, we take things that are outside of the paywall and put them behind the paywall if clients aren't willing to commit. And so those are the two things that we would talk about. So I think it's having a basis of our 3-form strategy is important. That's something that I've talked about for years on stages, and really that is a setup where we have an all about you form that allows us to get the most important information about a client so that we can treat their transaction as a personal one. It's very detailed. I have thousands of responses to that at this point, and it's allows us to customize the client's experience in a way that you'll never see in any other case. People that work with us in the mortgage space, they come in expecting one thing, and then they write the reviews that talk about they always talk about our communication. That's the biggest one. But the reason that they're so emphatic about writing us reviews, why we have over 1,000 reviews at this point, just for my team alone, is that they know that we treat this like the largest transaction of their life. So they're all about you form. Their key advisor form, which we don't really use that form anymore, but we do ask all the questions. I'll hit on that. And then I forgot what the third form is. It's the homework, the introductions, the ask for the closing, which we don't use that anymore either, but we have integrated these into our process.
So the three forms are 3 times we collect information during the process.
Correct. Yeah.
Whether or not it's a form or a question. A question or a system.
Point. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Roshan.
You're talking about client. Is the client the home purchaser? Is it a realtor?
That's a good question.
Because now things are different than when I...
Both. It's a great question. So we're not going to ask the realtor the same question we're going to ask the buyer or the borrower. We'll go borrower, realtor, right? If I sent the all about you form that we use for a borrower to a real estate professional, they'd never fill it out. It's, first of all, a lot of questions, and it's also very personal. So the client will tell us their entire story on this all about you form, because by the time we ask them for it, they're naked to us as far as that's concerned. Like hypothetically, no, not that, not literally, figurative, metaphor. Thank you. Yeah. So we've already have their bank statements, we have their social security number, we know their credit score, so we don't really care about asking about their kids or their dogs and that kind of stuff, right?
So that's partly a timing thing.
Oh, it's definitely timing. They would never fill that out on the front end, just like a realtor wouldn't, because they're like, this is way too personal. So with the realtor, we have depending upon the relationship with the agent, we have 3 forms. We have a really short form. We call it the short form, all about you, the medium form, and the long form. The long one is what we use for all of our buyers, but depending upon the realtor, we'll either use the medium or the short. The short is so impersonal that I've even used it when I spoke at Young Guns a couple years ago, and this was also an Idea Collective thing. So a couple different, large events where we would actually ask the entire audience to fill out the short form. So it's only like 6 questions. Right? So we would allow them, just tell us your favorite color, something unique about yourself, and a handful of other things. In the case of the Young Guns, that was the fun experiment because I knew that I could get, what do you think, 150 people in the room there, easy. I could eliminate down to, my point in the 15, 20 minutes I had was to be like, it's not rocket science. You can personalize even with a short amount of questions. And so it was like, all right, everybody stand up. And then I said, I asked people to sit down if their favorite color wasn't this or this wasn't their favorite food. And in those just 6 questions, we were able to isolate to one person. Of course, I made sure that she was going to be there ahead of time. Otherwise, the whole thing would have blown up. But
our clients couldn't make it.
She didn't know what I was going to do, but I wanted to make sure she was there because everybody did give me permission to talk about their information, right? So we do. That's again thinking ahead. Even in that example of the speaking, thinking ahead. How could this go? What's it going to do? Because I have a goal, and that is to prove that I can isolate in 6 questions down to one person. In her case, it was so easy. I could have probably done that with 1,000 people in the room and still got to one with that one. In the case of client, our goal is 3 introductions by closing. So everything that we're doing is getting us to that goal. So again, it's from a book. It might even be the title of the book. Start with the end in mind. Have the goal. If you don't have a goal, you don't really know what you're going after, right? And so this idea of closing.
Your goal is not even the close. Your goal is the after the close.
Way past the closing. Yeah, it's more business. The closing is the paycheck, but the real paycheck is the referral. And again, we never even used that word. Like, I can't believe I said it. Introduction. I don't want a referral. I want an introduction.
I baited you on that.
Yeah, well, you kind of did, but it's all right. So this idea of an introduction is really what we're going for, and our target is 3, right? So when we look at the sales process, I'm going to start from the front now that you understand this. So the client comes in, they're introduced to us. All of our realtors and most of our clients at this point understand that those introductions need to come by group text. The reason for that is because we know that the group text has the best chance of being read. I was going to say I don't want, but I really just don't prefer that my business cards handed out. I've gotten to the point where I don't even carry them anymore. I don't prefer a business card being handed out. I don't prefer my name being given to somebody. I don't prefer an email introduction. It's a group text. It's the only group. You never get spammed on group text unless somebody adds you to one that you just, where you're like, oh, right? Where like, I have one right now where I found out how to mute the alerts on that message, which is awesome. But like, it's very rare to have a spammy group text. It's very common to have a spammy text, right?
Sure.
So the group text, and the thing is that in the case of these group texts, the person that's starting the conversation, they're already in the other person's phone almost every time. So it's like,
right.
Friendly name, stranger. Here's the introduction, right? So that's kind of how it looks. So it starts with a group text, and then from there, they get a video from me most of the time. So for a long time, I thought this idea that I need to respond to these leads as fast as possible all the time. And as my business has grown, that's impossible. So we have now put a process in place with our team where we text back. It looks like it's me, but it's not most of the time. That says, hey, I got your information. I would love to send you a customized recorded video later today because I only do those from 4 to 5. I don't tell them that, but I'm just telling you. I'd love to send it to you later today. But if you're in a hurry, I have a pre-recorded one I could send you. What do you prefer? And by the way, I need your email address. In the vast majority, I've not tracked it, but it's definitely over 95% are willing to wait for the custom video. The thing is, I say nothing different between the two except their name, but they love it. And I mentioned their realtor too, but it's the same thing over and over again. But I've never automated or generalized that process because it's abundantly clear to me that people will prefer that custom approach, right? Just based on that question. In a world where everybody wants everything yesterday, they're willing to wait for me to record a custom video for them that they feel like I recorded just for them. And it really, again, it's only their name. That's all it is. And I'll mention their agent, whoever referred them. It's a little bit different, but the meat of it is the same. So they get that, they apply, they never see me again. They talk to my team until the time of buyer consult. During the buyer consult, by that point, we've already gotten their documents, we pulled their credit, we've verified everything, they're pre-approved, they're ready to rock and roll. My first close is right here. So as far as they've experienced, our availability is 24/7, or at least well outside of business hours, evenings, weekends, all that. At this point, during the buyer consult, I lay out all their numbers, their options, and I have them understand what's going on. And then I tell them at the end of it. So at the beginning, Teresa explains the process. She's my pre-approval expert. She explains that underwriting comes late. How many of you have bought a house? At some point, right? So underwriting comes late in the process. That's usually where there's all these hiccups and headaches. And Teresa's told them that's late. They are the final approver of the loan. It doesn't matter what I think at the end of the day. It's whether they approve it, right? So we offer them the ability to bring that underwriting early. So we take them from pre-approved to fully underwritten pre-approved. Lenders do this all the time. This is nothing special. The thing is, there's a cost about this. It costs me as the branch owner a lot of money because I got to pay Teresa, Jackie, our processor, the underwriter's wages. We have to order verifications, which could easily be hundreds of dollars in that alone. So I tell them, hey, here's the thing. We can get you one step further in the process. We can show the sellers and anybody else involved in this process that you are absolutely the most qualified buyer. And we know that when buyers are in competition, most of the time this TBD underwritten pre-approval will get them to win. But here's the thing. 2 things. I need to know from you, Mr. and Ms. Borrower, 1, that you are looking to buy a house in the next 90 days. Because if you don't do it, if we do this and you're not actively looking, because you'd be amazed how many people go on vacation and are like, yeah, no, this is next year. The heck? Putting so much time into it on the front end. 1, you're looking to buy a house now. 2, I need to know that I'm your lender. I need you to tell me that you know that we're the lender for you. And anybody who hesitates, which is pretty uncommon, I've have less than 5 this year that have not come around. Now, I would say on average about 60% of them say yes right away, but we tell them, hey, here's what happens. So that's cool. You have time to think about it. That's totally fine. Couple things that happen. 1, you don't have this most solid pre-approval that we talked about. 2, our service now moves to business hours. So banker's hours, 9 to 5, that's when we're available Monday through Friday. You need help on the weekend, we're not here. Sorry, it's just not part of the process. And then you are here. We look at it the other way. A benefit of the TBD underwrite is 1, you're going to have this. 2, you get access to my team outside of business hours. So I'm not telling them they lose access to us, but I'm telling them with it, they get access to us outside of business hours because they think they had it before and they did, but that goes away at this point because I literally have put all my cards on the table. There's nothing left for us to talk about. They know everything about us that they need to know to make a decision. Most of the hesitation of that 40% comes because I'm only meeting with the decision maker, but they want to respect their partner and have a conversation. Totally fine. I would actually kind of be shocked if they didn't do that when they're in a relationship. They should figure out their partnership and conversate with that, right? So usually what happens, like just yesterday, we get a text in the evening that they had the conversation, they're good to go, and we're ready to rock. And then at that point, we TBD underwrite them. And then the thing is, the best part about this is of the ones that we've lost, they would have been the ones that would have brought my revenue down to nothing anyway. And we've only had 2 or 3 people that have shopped us since that's happened. And then my conversation with them goes very different. Hey, I told you we were spending a lot of money. You committed to us about this. You need to give us an at-bat at this point to figure out if we can still make this work for you. I understand you're trying to save some money. Here's the conversation that you had. I'm a full service lender. I'm not the cheapest. I never will be. I have no desire to be the cheapest. There'll always be a company out there that'll do it cheaper than me. And you think about the 9 to 5ers, the ones that are completely unavailable on the weekends, they'll always cut us cheaper because they can. They're paying their people $15, $20 an hour on all the transactions, and that's it, versus large amounts of money that we get to earn in our business over time, right? So there is something to it. It's not like we're crazy expensive, but people will jump on an 1/8% rate all the time, right? And they don't understand exactly, or it's not clear what they're paying. So.
It's not something like, oh, I should look for mortgage people this week.
Yeah, my SEO is dialed in. I get calls. My business development person on my team does a really good job with that. We get calls every single week from all over the country from people sometimes looking for loans, a lot of times looking for help with their loan that we've already originated at the corporate level, and I just send them to our headquarters. But that's part of it. But the vast majority of our business is referrals, because we've been beating this drum of introductions for so long. And because of our process, our realtors love working with us. So the communication is really not for the clients, it's for the realtor. The realtor knows all the time what's going on. If you go look at my socials even just a couple days ago, Allie posted a review from a new agent up in Fox Valley that worked with us that loved it. Raving review right out of the gate.
As an agent.
As a realtor. Yeah, real estate professional, because they know what we're doing, right? So, and they know all the time what's going on. There are never any surprises.
And are you often getting the referral from is real estate a real core element of your referral process?
It is. Okay. Yeah, it's a big part of it. I mean, if I were better at my database management, because I have about 2,000 closed clients, if I was better at nurturing that, I think that would be a bigger part of my business, and that is a focus for this year and next, because real estate agents are fickle in some regards, right? They just need another lender to show up with something shiny. Like, I have hundreds of loan programs, but I also have no desire to run around and talk to realtors about the different loan programs. We have access to basically every program out there. I want the realtors that love our process to reach out and ask if I can do it when they hear from the other one, right? And so we see that to some extent. Now, I'm generalizing, stereotyping, whatever, but it's just, there's so many people, particularly in this market, that do what I do, that it's just, who's the next, one of my loan officers lost somebody to a lender who was given a pies out from Elegant Farmer. That was what it took from the loyalty perspective. So what I mean, ficklency, it's about lack of loyalty. It's just, what did you do for me last? Versus my partners, the core partners, they trust our process. They know that when they refer a client to us, it's going to close. If we say yes, if we give that client a thumbs up, it's going to close. And they are true business professionals that value our process.
So one thing I haven't done, because we've been talking a lot about process and how solid this process is, I think we all hear that. We are always checking the results. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you to speak to, just for a moment, the proof that all of this is working. I know you've got some great stats and some great industry recognitions. I'm asking you to be proud of what you've accomplished and how you've been recognized.
So there's a bunch of them. So I've been listed as a top 1% originator in the country, I think 3 different years. So not within the company, but all originators in the country. Was listed in Forbes last year, and I found out I'll be listed in Forbes this year as a market leader as well. 5-star magazine award many years. I don't know what the number is on that one. And then my branch last year was listed as one of the most, I think, they would never tell me they said the top 2. Whether I was 1 or 2, they wouldn't say. They wouldn't tell either of us that we're in the top 2 of the profitable branches, right? So running our business as a profit-based business first and foremost.
So revenues there, profits there, customer services there, nationwide recognition.
Yes. And our reviews, while I don't know what this stat is, I've never seen a loan originator that I've ever looked up with anywhere near the number of reviews that we have.
Just from a quantity perspective.
Correct. Yeah.
People who are going out of their way to say good things about you in public.
I've never even seen one that exceeds 200, let alone 1,000, where we're at right now. 1,000, almost 1,100, I think.
And what I see is that you attribute that to not luck. It's a ton of intention about your process.
For sure. Everything about it is intentional. Every last piece of it. So one of the things, so we talked about the close, right? We get to that piece where it's that's the first close.
Vonnie, do you have a question? You want to jump in?
No, you can move forward.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I would backtrack this week.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Well, no, because I only was thinking about things just because with realtor base, my husband's a realtor, so I understand a lot of this stuff. And when you talk about having the underwriting kind of moved up, is that why more people work with you? Because there's a lot of times where you get a day out in closing and all of a sudden underwriters are like, oh, I found this. And then now you have to move your closings and then people get frustrated. Does that help streamline that process a little bit so that when you're building your relationships with other realtors, you're like, hey, I've got a system here that we can, keep you on track, keep the client on track, keep everyone.
Yeah, a couple things. So that's a great question. Number one, clients would never recognize that as a value add until we tell them to, but I think a real estate professional with experience definitely would. Number two, there's a lot of realtors in this market that think I'm crazy to put people, I think it's hilarious actually because of what just happened with NAR settlement. I've been following around like, no, I want commitment. And now the law is requiring a realtor to get commitment before they even show a single house, or not the law, the case law, court action. But I want commitment. When I lay all my cards on the table, if someone's not willing to commit to me 100% right there on the spot, then I'm done. Absolutely. I literally have shown, they've gone through we use a technology to do this, that it's not a fee worksheet. It's full interactive technology that lives online that they can actually interact with, that shows all their options, compares them to each other, shows them that stuff. So back to the commitment piece, which is where it was at, I want that commitment. So a lot of lenders will do the underwrite without the commitment, but we won't because it's expensive. So and this is why Michael wanted me here. It's like, let's put our foot down on first, spend money on something, get commitment at the end of the day, right? So, but the realtor definitely appreciates that. Some do. Some, like I said, think it's crazy, which is where I was going with that little bit of a rant there. So,
and that's okay, because that's not your ideal partner.
Yeah, it does not matter to me.
You want people who are committed on both sides of that conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me at all what they think. There are plenty of, even in this market, there are plenty of other people that I can work with.
Eddie.
I was going to say, when you say commitment, you want somebody to sign, and then if you want they have to.
Well,
I went, bought a house, went to PNC, that's pretty sure. It's pretty straight, simple. I'm like, I wasn't born yesterday. I bought a few cars, so I'm not going to just go in. All right, go ahead, take it. I went to whatever credit union that I have now. Super easy process, very simple. I was like, wow, this is not as complicated as everybody has been telling me. I have to jump through 13 hoops and do all these things. And I was lucky. I had this old lady who was my realtor, and till today, I thank her. Otherwise, I would have bought a lemon.
Well,
we're nice, and
yeah.
I can't, no.
Yep.
And I was just like, wow, where did you come from? And we saw and it was the process was the easiest thing.
So
compared to what I've been told and done. And my ex is a real.
I want to translate something. So that second company didn't do anything different. Like, it's the same mortgage process.
Right.
It's what part are you doing versus what part the customer is doing.
Right. Yeah. It's what you had is you had somebody helping get the right stuff, looking at different solutions. You also had a good realtor who was not just about selling the house, right? So,
she was older. She was in, I don't know, maybe 60s, and I was like, yes, never bought a house, I never knew anything, and she brought in, this first home that I liked, had a basement there. She noticed something. She brought an engineer that plumbed the thing.
Yep.
Like, oh, you need, 40 grand worth to level this thing. She told me, you want to, do this? And they said, oh, no. And she's like, hey, we're going this way. And I'm like, all this thing, that I was just agreeing on it. I would have known it. We would see the things, for example, light fixtures.
But so she's looking out for you.
Yes.
Yep. So to your question, though, about the cost, in the mortgage space, the only real way I could get some sort of commitment is to charge an application fee, and that doesn't even lock them into me. There's no way for me to get them to sign. So no, you look me in the eye and tell me that you're going to work with me. That's all I can do legally.
Interesting.
If I were not in the mortgage space, you guarantee you there'd be a credit card and a signature on a piece of paper there.
That.
So
yep.
Yeah.
My question is, yes, commitment, like with her, I didn't, it's like, oh yes, I do, and I don't know, she was just that.
Well, you signed a buyer agency with her. You definitely did.
Yep.
That's been in Wisconsin for over 30 years. So unless you've had that house longer than that, you signed an agreement with her that that she was your agent, because she can't legally in Wisconsin write an offer on your behalf without that. Now, what the difference is between then and she didn't?
No.
Okay. So did somebody else write the offer?
No, I don't think so. No, I didn't sign anything with her. She didn't write anything.
Well, let's not rat her out.
I don't know.
But didn't you buy? You said you bought a house, right?
I didn't buy.
Oh, did you with a different agent?
No, for her. She was.
Okay. So when you made that contract to the seller, that's when that agency would have started. That's the difference between then and now, is that agency has to start before a house is shown as opposed to when an offer is submitted.
What I'm hearing is
just part of that.
Regardless of documentation, et cetera, I'm hearing it's about your point. You can't get documentation or a payment. So you're going to do a behavior level commitment.
I can only get a payment, but to do that, it requires a bunch of disclosures that I don't want to do on the front end. I just want them to look me in the eye.
I've done my part of the relationship.
Yep.
these are the behaviors I've committed to.
Correct.
And then you're looking for the same thing from them.
Yep. Yeah.
And like you said, if they go talk to somebody else, that behavior is what tells you
Correct.
they're not as committed as I thought they were, or what have you.
And in my space, I would, if I were in a different industry, a different business, and I didn't have to like throw a bunch of disclosures out before and make them sign a document that locks them into me, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Sure.
It's just the industry I'm in. I have to be okay with a verbal look me in the eye handshake kind of an agreement. Yeah. Well, all I'm really looking for, again, reverse engineer this. I'm looking for permission to be able to call them out if they go somewhere else later. Because if they shot me later and I hadn't had that conversation, I have no right to tell them how much work I've done for them again, right? I have to tell them in the front end how much work I'm going to do for them. So it's just permission. No different than, to keep the conversation going, permission to ask for introductions.
There we go.
So when a client when someone recognizes value, whether that be a conversation like somebody saying, oh, that's amazing, or you're awesome, or holy crap, I can't believe you got this done so fast, whatever that looks like. You even recognize value with the credit union. Like those statements like that are very much a value recognition. When someone recognizes value, you always have permission to ask for help. In my world, that means introduction. So when we just got one last week, I was training my new branch leader up in Green Bay. His agent or his buyer had texted saying, thank you so much. Something to the effect of, there were multiple times I wanted to get out of this because I thought it was bad, and you were able to show me what was like, and it worked out, and I'm really glad I bought the house. This was awesome, right? That's value recognition. Hey, Jesse. So I was telling Alex to give Jesse a buzz. Jesse, I'm so glad that you felt that way. Here's the thing, like we work really hard to make sure that our clients feel the way that you do, and you're going to forget about this feeling down the road. So I want you to really pause, sit in that moment for a little bit and understand exactly how you feel right now. Like let it sink in a little bit, because here's the thing. So many people, you're a young guy, he's in his 20s. So many people, and you're going to come across so many people in your life that deserve to feel exactly the way that you feel when they buy a house. This is the largest transaction of your life. It will be the largest transaction of their life. And the thing is, Jesse, you're actually kind of failing your friends if you don't tell them about us in this experience. Like, you really need to. And so don't forget about these introductions. Like, because he already knew about the intros. We've talked about them before. Reminding him again, text introductions. They deserve to feel exactly the way that you feel right now. And you have to be the one that says it, because I'm not going to be there to have that conversation. So in Jesse's case, he gave us an underhanded pitch. Is that soft, like an easy pitch. But the thing is that we ask the buyer early in the process what their theme is, and we don't say it that way. We ask them why they're buying a house. Just yesterday, somebody told me they're buying a house because, they told Teresa earlier in the week they're buying a house because their landlord's selling it. And so I was telling her, I'm like, Shelby, I don't buy it. Like nobody buys a house because the landlord's selling it. There's got to be more to the story here. What's going on? Tell me the details. She's like, well, we've lived here since 2019. It's really close to work. I love this house. I am ultimately buying it because he's selling it, but I've wanted to buy it since the day I moved in. Sweet. So now along the way, we're going to be reminding her that when the underwriting conditions come back, hey, Shelby, you're one step closer to making this home that's not been yours. Like, awesome, right? We'll use different words. My team will bring that up. And then when we get to the closing, again, reverse engineer, we ask the question on the front end because I'm going to make her recognize value at the closing. Closing hasn't happened yet, but I'm going to ask her, hey, Shelby, you told us that the reason you were buying this, and I missed part of it, guys, sorry. The other question that we ask besides the theme is we ask them what a great lending experience looks like to them. So, hey, you've never been through this process before, but just imagine in your mind what a great lending experience would look like. We ask that question because we're going to use those answers later, but we also ask that question because we want to make sure that they don't have any unrealistic expectations. I've had buyers tell me, well, I want you to be available whenever I ask. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, if I text you at 11 o'clock on Saturday night, I want to answer. Yep, cool. Not happening. We're done by like 7 on the weekends, right? So 7 p.m. is kind of our cutoff. Our system actually stops forwarding those text messages to my phone at that point, but I'll be in touch the next day all day long. But that almost never happens. People are realistic most of the time. So it's really about what their expectation is. So I actually don't remember what Shelby's answer was to that, but let's just say what most people say, which is great communication, on-time stuff, let me know what's going on. Well, I don't really have to work for that because we do that anyway, right? So Shelby, at the closings, 3 weeks from now, you told me that you were looking to buy this house because you fell in love with it after moving it as a rental. And thankfully, Bob, your landlord, who actually is who sent her to us, we helped him buy that house in 2019. Is Bob is willing to sell it to you. And you told us during that process that you had a great experience to you would be great communication, on time, thorough details, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just curious, Shelby, do you feel like we checked those boxes? And she's going to say every time, absolutely, or heck yeah, or you guys nailed it, whatever. It's going to be something like that. But she's going to recognize value, and that's going to be the time, because at the closing, she's getting the keys. The emotional high is there. That's when I'm going to come in again, just like we did with Jessie, and remind her that we cannot help people like this unless we know about them. And you had the experience that you wanted, and everybody in your life that you know that's looking to buy a house, sell a house, refinance a mortgage, or renters that want to know what their options are, deserve this experience as well. You need to tell them about us, and that group text is the way to do it. Don't forget. So the only reason that we're asking the theme and the great lending experience early on is so that we can use their words against them. Lack of better term here, right? Not against them, but use their words to remind them of the experience that they sought after. And the thing is, we could look at this from an open-minded perspective or an abundance perspective of, we're just asking this question so that we can ask that. Some people might be like, well, I can't do whatever they say all the time. Fine. Set the expectation on the front end. Like I said, the person that wants me to text them at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, no. There is never, ever anything going on in the mortgage industry or real estate industry that needs to be addressed at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. Ever. Very, very rare. That is in our head as the salesperson that we need to jump on it that fast. So
houses would go up and they'd make the deal at midnight.
It can happen sometimes, there's no doubt. But it's not an emergency, and that's different. That is very different. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. When there's an offer, you got to jump like that. That's the most, and really the only emergency. But when you're in a contract already, 11 o'clock at night is never necessary.
I have a question. I looked up your website.
Okay.
And I bought my house 40 years ago. And at that time, the mortgage person was like some no-name, ambiguous suit.
Yep.
I came and I never saw him again. We just signed paperwork and everyone was happy. So when did that, are you unique or did the market change? Or?
There's a lot of companies that won't allow a person to have a personal brand when it comes to originating, right? So I don't have a domain that has anything to do with usclosemichael.com, I'm assuming, right? That website with my, yep. So that's part of my leadership in the branch. Everybody that originates in my branch will, like the guys up in Green Bay right now, are going through that branding process of getting their own brand, getting their own logos, getting it all done, because at the end of the day, it's about them. It's not about the company ever. Yeah. There are certain companies in town that are all about their own brand, and they make it really hard, both in the mortgage and real estate space, for their people to make their own individual brands. But let's be real. Like,
very personal.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the goal of it, for sure. That's part of it. There's no doubt. But the website in and of itself is nothing. It's those personal touches that we've been talking about through this process that I think are a big part of it.
One thing that I want to just call out, which is, we talked earlier in here, and I want to just make this connection about, are we manipulating? Are we being shady? Are we being any of those things? And what I'm hearing from you is you recognize that what you are doing is, again, helping more people.
Right.
Ultimately.
Yeah, I said use their words against them. I said walk them into other things. Yeah, that you could look at that as manipulation, but that's what sales is: getting somebody to do something that you want them to do. That
they also want, then get a thing that they want as a result.
And if you're doing it with integrity, it's going to be something that they want and something that's good for them, right? I mean, there are definitely, we all have experiences of salespeople that don't have integrity. Your realtor is a perfect example of somebody who has integrity, right? But I can tell you probably at least 50 times in my career where I had a buyer they know the basement's problem and the realtor's pushing hard to get it sold anyway. It happens all the time. It's so frustrating to me. But the thing is, we do have the power. We can jump in and I can tell the client, hey, just disclose to us that foundation's bad and we'll deny your loan in a heartbeat and get you out of that.
Yeah, we got you.
If your realtor doesn't want to watch, then just let me know. Just accidentally send me that inspection. But that's the kind of stuff that we have to do. We can make money without the integrity, but we will not have an abundance of money or an abundance of business or abundance of anything if we live in that space where we're just tricking people to do stuff. So
Dom, I know you had something.
You have a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you have an amazing process, sales process in place, and the personal touches are amazing. So how do you go through the process, like when you were talking about the closing, and you're bringing up what people told you in the initial form? Is that via email? Is that via personal call? Or how do you
No, great question. So most of our closings, I mean, even though we can do business nationally, the vast majority of our business is local, and we will push very hard to have that closing at our office. So then when the client comes in, this is a huge part of the experience. They see the living room lobby. They see which means they come in, our lobby looks like a living room. It's still officey, but it's got a couch and some pillows and some decorations like what a living room would have. There's a TV on the one wall that has their welcome information that they see even before they enter our suite. And then once they get into the closing room, when they sit down, they're specifically sat so that they'll see out the door, and they'll see the TV on the other side of the lobby that has the house on it that they're buying with their realtor and everything on it.
Right?
But there's a lot. There's balloons that are up. There's balloons. There's a sign that says it's closing day. Like we've joked about getting a red carpet. Fingers stuck in the glass. Getting a red carpet for them. We haven't done it, but we've talked about that. Like it's all about making that experience special. So that happens in the closing room. In fact, I'm usually only in there for like 4 or 5 minutes. And I encourage loan originators. I have a unique position in that I'm the top producer for my branch, but also I run the branch. So I don't have just a sales role. I have an operations leadership role too. So I'm not in there. But if this was a loan officer whose job is to strictly sell and let me deal with the operation side of stuff for their business, I would expect them to be in that closing room the whole time, right? So, but I just can't. I mean, I could, but I'd have to bring my laptop in there and get stuff done because my life is much like, I don't know if you noticed, I got here a little early and I was working the whole time waiting for this time to start because there's a lot to do when you're running 2 branches in that business. So,
I hear your process and it's very detailed, and I've heard a lot of other mortgage lenders speak. But one thing I didn't hear, and I think you're doing it on purpose, you never talk about rates, you never talk about how much money you can save people, and you never brought up money at all in your process. Is that intentional that I'm hearing?
yeah, I mean, talking about interest rates is insane to me. There's over 20 variables that go into determining one person's interest rate on any given loan. And then within that, you have about 15 options on how you can structure that loan. And so what we do before our buyer consult is we have a video I recorded a couple of years ago that I ask relentlessly through our automation for people to watch ahead of time so that I don't have to have that conversation. I show them that they might get a rate today even of 5.75 up to 7%. And like, what do you mean? Like this whole idea, what's your rate that's the most one of the challenges that I have when I'm talking to people, I get passionate about it and then I go straight to the throat, I was going to say that's the dumbest question ever.
You're no friends here. You can go there.
Well, but I don't want to do that because the crassness can kind of go the wrong way. So that's the most uninformed question a person could ask me. They have no idea what they're talking about when that's the case. So that tells me that I need to go through a process of educating them. So when they push hard for the rate, I'll tell them straight up, I'm not even talking about that until you get the application done because there's 17 variables that apply. I don't know all of them. We need your application. Remind them this is the largest transaction of your life. If I'm willing to just shoot from the hip on your interest rate, that's how the rest of your process is going to go. So get your application. Nice. And I've had people say, so you won't even talk to me about this until I have an application? Absolutely Correct. Not. I have standards. I won't tell them that, but I'm telling you, I have standards. I won't do it. And the thing is, every single person that pushes on that, they apply anyway. They do, and they go through the process, and then they go from uninformed to informed during that piece. Because there's so many different ways to structure the loan. So during the buyer consult, to your point about saving money, during that so there are brokerages, particularly in this town, and they're growing, where that's all they talk about: saving money, low rate, low rate, low rate. All they're talking about is interest rate, and they're missing massive opportunities to build wealth in other ways. I just had this conversation last week with a client who was going to go with a broker who was giving them a rate that was 1% lower than mine. Their entire process, though, set them back about $500,000 in 15 years because their strategy was completely backwards. And I was able to prove to them that that's the difference. So you either go to the low rate guy or gal who's all about just the low rate, getting the loan closed, boom, and send you out, or you talk to a mortgage advisor who's going to actually help you structure this debt in a way that will help you become incredibly wealthy. I've become a millionaire, and I'm going on record saying this, net worth in the 7 figures by following the strategies that I'm teaching people, because I know how this works, right? So let's talk about financing. What happens is people look at it cheap, which is like, that's how you want to finance your credit cards. That's how you want to finance your cars. That's how you want to finance. That's how people would want to finance depreciating assets, because they understand that depreciating assets should be as cheap as possible. When you're financing an appreciating asset, particularly in real estate, but also this applies to expensive watches and other things like that, you finance it completely different. If you start to think like someone who's wealthy, you're going to finance a house very differently than if you think of somebody who's not. And so we have that conversation. That's way too early for this kind of a group of people, right, in that conversation. But we have that conversation during the buyer consult, and that's why I have no problems expecting commitment at that point, because I've shown them, just like I said, last week, somebody was 15 years. You follow this plan for 15 years. What you told me you were going to do here, which is what they wanted, was over here, and that's what the low-cost lender is going to offer the vast majority of the time. They're just closing the loan. If you do what I showed you here, you follow this plan for the next 15 years, which you said you could easily do, you will have $500,000 more in the bank in that time frame there. So it's like almost 600 actually in that time frame, in a conservative forecast, right? So that's part of what we do. And that a new agent that we've never worked with before, after that happens, I would call them and explain what I just went through with the clients, and they're like, whoa, that's way beyond it. But yeah, I don't start with that because, one, it's a massive flex, and that's not my intention. Two, it's not, it goes over most people's heads. It's just too technical. So the hardest part for me is getting people to give me the chance. And then once they see, the perfect example of another referral that just came in this week, she and I had been connected through something. I told her something. I invited her to an event I was doing. She came. Then she ran into one of my best business partners on a golf outing the next day and asked the business partner, do you know this guy? And that the person was like, yeah, he's my number one guy. Fast forward a month, she just introduced us to a good friend of hers yesterday, and she referred to us, on Monday, and she referred to us as her preferred lender. We've never done a loan together, but she's taken the time to understand the process, right? And so she's all in. So because I run the ship that I do, I don't focus nearly as much on that as I could. One, because I want, and this could maybe be a little bit of ego too in there. There's no doubt about it. I just want people to see the process and trust it and give it a shot, because once they do that, it's good. But that sale is very different than just, I'm going to get your clients the cheapest loan every single time. Any realtor that asks me that question, I love it, having this conversation. Well, I need to have my clients shop around to 3 different ones. It happens all the time. Your husband might even say this. Let's think about this for a second, realtor at Shore West. I know that's where your husband's with too, but I had this conversation with a Shore West agent not too long ago. Awesome. So you charge full commission when you list a house, right? Yep. Okay, awesome. And you think that when it comes to the loan, they should get the cheapest rate, cheapest deal possible, right? Okay, awesome. So I'm curious, why didn't you send that listing that you charge full price down the road to the flat fee listing company that's only going to charge $1,500 to list that home for sale? You're doing $500,000 at 6%. What if they need to get the cheapest deal? Then you have no business even listing that house? And they're like, oh. Yeah, every single time. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, well, you should start thinking about it that way, because your job is to sell that house. My job is to finance it in the best way possible, and both of us deserve to get compensated for that, right? And so there's a big difference in that, in how that goes. But it's the thinking that happens. So the agents that are attracted to this low rate are not looking at it quite the same, right, as they should. They're not. So that's a little bit of a passion thing for me, but it's a conversation that I'm willing to have. It's a hard conversation, just like demanding to some extent. By that, I mean taking things, and again, to use your words, putting it behind the paywall if they don't want to agree to commit. This is where it's at. You have to look at it this way. So. Now,
we're hearing a lot about the drive that you have in your business and how much you're doing and all those commitments. But I know that you have a whole other, the rest of your life and your family, and all those other amazing things that you are doing. So we talk a lot here about having that balance, or having the blend of the thriving business and the joyful life. And I know that that's something that you're very passionate about. So would you mind just taking a minute or two to talk about that? Because I want to make sure that they also get to know, I don't know, we're right at time, but
I have time if you have it, but I don't know what your all schedule's like.
We'll flex into lunch. We'll flex into, I just want to make sure that
there's no way I can cover this in 8 seconds.
Well, I understand that. But but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. So I think the biggest thing is just I had worked with a performance coach for about a year, just wrapped that up not too long ago, but I think the biggest thing is just understanding what's actually taking that away. So where are you wasting your time? We all know about social media, maybe about television. What about that look like, when in that area? So for me, I have to schedule everything because I will generally run really busy, and I'm actually recovering in that area. Still, it's a work in progress for sure. But what I find, at least for me, is that my email tends to be the death of me. Like I cannot be in that email. This idea of you will put as much time as you allot to something. If I give 5 hours a day, I could fill it up with email all the time. So we've had some processes in place where my wife now, she's one of our teammates. She categorizes my email for me, and then I only look at it once a day, usually, unless I have to go in there for something. But really being intentionally focused about that allows additional time. But we do weekly date nights, my wife and I do.
Which has become kind of the thing of legend.
It has, yeah. And we don't post so much about it anymore because after like 2 years, she shared she doesn't really like that I post about it all the time. So like, Lynn, what took so long? But I also have a calendar with my son, my youngest. I only have one still at home. My youngest is a senior this year, and so we do breakfast almost every Saturday. Plus, we're involved in other things like mountain biking, youth group, and all that. He and I are together more than just for an hour. But it's on the calendar as an intentional, just put the phone away kind of a time frame. We usually go to a place in Sullivan that does breakfast, and just close to home. Yeah. So there's that. But it's, I think the biggest thing that's really kind of taken it to the next level is that there's no TV in my house during the week once I get home. I know my wife watches it before I get there, but when I walk in, that television goes off because we found that our son, I just wanted it off. It was like let's try it for a week and see what happens. Well, it turned out that during that time, my intention was to journal, but I'm too tired by that point. So I'm not journaling. We're just having a conversation. But my son, who would come home from work during that time, our son, would normally just say hi and go up to his bedroom. It's not that he has a TV, but he'd mess around on his phone or whatever. But after the TV was off, he'd sit down and talk. And we were going from like a 30-second conversation to 45 minutes a night in just a couple days. Wow. And so I was like, hey, Lynn, we're not doing TV during the school year, at least. During the summer, they did watch. So we're in this transition period. I'm like, hey, it's got to be shut off because school started recently. So we're back to, we got out of the habit. We're trying to get back into it again. But it's been super quieting for the mind, which allows me to sleep even better than I was before. Go to bed a little bit earlier because I'm not up till 10:30 watching some stupid show that has nothing to do with my life, but I want to know the ending of it. Like things like that we just, it easily robs us of that stuff, right? So yeah, there's intentionality about everything, focus towards it, and then I think the biggest thing though that's gotten to me where I'm at is always changing. Like I joke with my team now, I kind of make fun of, that system that we tried for the last 3 months didn't work. We're throwing it out and starting a new one. And they've gotten to the point where they're all just so willing to flex all the time because they know that anything that we're doing right now isn't going to work or isn't going to stick unless it works. And they're cool with that. I mean, nobody likes change. I think I thrive in it. Like I personally find that if I go work at a different place every day, I'll get way more done than if I have to sit at my office all the time. But the team does like that ability they have embraced the change. And they also know that if it's working for them, they can speak up. And most of the time when I feel it's broken, they also do as well. If that makes sense. So a lot of that. Does that answer your question, or was there any points that you wanted to hit?
I know that you are also a person and a family man and a husband, and you do a lot of other great things. And I just wanted to make sure that we didn't only hear, I'm a hard driving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's every week not only do we have the date night and the time with my son, but I also am a leader for our high school guys. So I'm involved with relationships with like 10 other guys in the high school youth group, or the youth group with the high school guys, and helping mentor them and grow them. I'm also a coach for our mountain bike team, which typically requires one or two nights a week And then also like tomorrow we have our pre-ride, and on Sunday we have a race, and I'll be roving that race too. So there's a lot of outside commitments involved, and a lot of times they're related to what I enjoy, right? Like we didn't talk about this, but I have a very strict workout routine that I follow, and so this stuff falls in line with that usually too.
Makes
as well.
sense. So the intentionality is pervasive. These are my priorities.
For sure.
Everything else serves accordingly.
Correct. Yep. And if it doesn't, like in the case of the television, it's gone, or at least be willing to get rid of it for a little bit and see if it changes anything. But for me, it definitely did.
So since our focus for the day is closing sales, what, if anything, you can give us as kind of just a last, piece of advice we hadn't heard yet, or culminating thought?
Just a recap.
Where do you want to leave us? Yeah.
A real fast recap would be that you have to ask for the sale well before the closing. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you reverse engineer a process where you can have recognition of value at certain times in the process, so that you can in fact ask. Because otherwise, you're just the salesperson, right? The email signature that says, I see this all the time in real estate, like, I'm never too busy for your referrals. Or, hey, you get all the way to the closing table. That's what most people will do in our space. And they ask for the referrals then. Way too late. That seed needed to be, that's like when you're harvesting the seed that you planted way earlier, right? So it's really not complicated, just doing that. And then to your point about the psychology of sales, understand, how can I knock down the barriers that are in my client's world, because we're all selling to different people at different spaces. How can I give them that emotional high? In my case, it's the keys to their house, obviously, right? Like that's pretty easy. So how can I leverage that emotional high, but also knock down the barriers so that emotional high is even higher?
Nice.
So that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
No problem. Thank you.